So Brian Wang is here. As earlier today, I mentioned that it was a maybe yes, maybe no. So I must have played my cards right, or possibly, who knows what it was. But Brian is here because I want to talk. I want to talk about the news of the day. We'll do that first. But after we do the news of the day, I really want to get into the whole business of Elon Musk wanting his own terawatt hour or terawatt of
Yeah.
energy, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about solar. We'll talk about batteries. We'll talk about nuclear. We'll talk about space-based solar. And I've been promising all week, Brian, that I would have you on to talk about this because everybody else, we all got a little bit of knowledge, but
Mhm.
kind of look to you, you know,
Okay.
in this space. Anyway, okay, so let's talk really quickly. NVIDIA today apparently did okay. NVIDIA stock is up after hours. Tesla reversed and took back all the losses, the small loss that it had today. What does all that mean? What does that mean in terms of continuing the Tesla's continuation into the 400s over the next couple of weeks? Bring us up to date on how you're looking at this fundamentally, technically. I don't care. Any way you want to
So,
approach it.
so the NVIDIA AI data center stuff, that was the main thing. The AI chip sales were strong and good, 88% of their total revenue, I think it was, and they beat, I think, on their earnings and on their revenue. So the financial numbers were good, and the growth and the guidance forward on the AI stuff is good. That everyone's still buying all the AI chips they can, and so that's basically all thumbs up, and they're up over 140 bucks. That's all good. And then that similar 2-3% bump um, is what Tesla had as well. Um, and kind of in sympathy that AA is all good, more confidence in tech and that kind of stuff. And Tesla is kind of at a in a zone between 350 and 365 that is kind of like one of the last levels before pushing up to a possible run towards all-time highs. So really clearing 365 would be really good for technical reasons. Although kind of there's maybe something at 380 and there's maybe something at 420, but far less resistance than the 365 level. So if we pushed over briefly in the morning over 365, need to kind of push over that convincingly and then hold it, ideally through the end of this weekend to be technically good and to be all set up for high numbers. I think leading up to the Robotaxi launch, which we now have a date for, which you want to discuss there, like it's June 12th, right?
Yeah, so the June 12th date, which is certainly in June and certainly fine. And I don't think anybody's going to take away from Tesla the fact that they are doing it on the 12th, not the 1st. They also mentioned that again, I haven't seen any of this officially. This so far has been Reuters and Bloomberg and other people have been reporting all of this. I haven't seen a single comment from that I specifically saw quotes around or that came off of any of the Tesla X accounts saying that this was true. But what Bloomberg said was A, that it will be on the 12th is when they'll start, and B, that they already have driverless vehicles putting around in Austin right now. And one wag said, "Hey, no video, not I don't believe it." But that would be kind of cool if they've already got some driverless cars without passengers, testing them maybe for the next 2 weeks while they get ready for the rollout. So, what did you think about all that?
I'm glad that it's June 12th. I've been happier if it was June 1st, earlier the better. But better than June 30th, that would be a long wait. And so I'm looking forward to that happening great. And we also have the driverless car in Giga Berlin. So
Mhm.
the new Teslas, I think, are also driving themselves to the parking areas there, just like they are in Fremont and Austin. And I presume that'll happen in China as well soon. So once all the new cars are driving themselves to parking areas, that will be like 5,000 cars a day doing that. So that's all encouraging stuff that, this is happening, that the robotaxi driverless world is happening. So, which we, following closely, are seeing more and more evidence of it. And now soon the world will too, because it won't really count until they see paid rides, and then a lot of paid rides. So,
So over the weekend, I did a four-part series, which I'm going to say once again, if you haven't watched the four-point series and the four video series, you want to go back and watch the whole four video series. Brian, in that four video series, I created what I consider to be the 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 formula, you will, or possibly the foundational principles for the golden age starting in the fourth quarter, maybe even halfway through the third quarter. And the pillars of this were that well, the first pillar was that we have just had breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough over the last couple of weeks in the AI world. We've got Tesla starting the very first really fully AI, robot, if you will, maybe right now on the streets of Austin, but in on the 12th, it'll be out there for sure. I mean, there's just so much happening. There was just a massive amount of new stuff going on with regard to the AI world, including of some energy in the faces or in the body language of the All In podcast of B2G, of Diamandis in some of his videos over the weekend, over last week. There was a different kind of energy, a different kind of anticipation that we're here. It's going to start happening now. So that was pillar number one. Pillar number two was Elon's back to work. Elon is a giant of the age. There's nothing that can compare to Elon. You listen to what Jensen says about him. I think that's the best. I think that's the best way to think about Elon. What did Jensen have to say about Elon? Oh, nobody else could have done Memphis except Elon. Oh, he's way ahead on driverless cars. Oh, Elon. He's always talking about Elon being, kind of on another level. And then Elon has his one foot in the AI space, the technical space, the tech space. He's got his, in all of these kind of areas that are important, but he's got a second leg over in the political space. And in the political space, he's standing next to another giant, a completely different president, a president unlike, and this is, I don't even have to be political. I don't have to be a MAGA fan to recognize that this guy is different. And anybody on the left that hasn't figured out that he's different, they need to really start thinking about the fact that he's different, even if they don't like what he's doing. And so we have this powerful president, this powerful tech leader, and the underlying AI that's all coming together right now in terms of the future age of abundance. All of that happening seems to me to be, and the economy not slowing down. No evidence yet, not a single shred of evidence that we're slowing down, that by the fourth quarter, we could be entering into the golden age. What do you think?
yeah, I think for me, golden a good stock market golden age is one thing, and then a AI takeoff is another thing. So the AI takeoff part, robotaxi at scale, thousands of Tesla bots, other humanoid bots, AI possibly getting to AGI-ish levels, next level stuff, right? With a next version of, Grok 3.5 delayed a few weeks, maybe it's coming out this week or next week, or it's probably next week. They're talking about that, or it's delayed to July. But then a Grok 4, probably in September, and then the which with a far larger amount of compute, and then within 6 to 9 months, the million chip, but B200, B300 by the in 6 months and in this year or Q1, and then the model really short thereafter. There is those are I think are huge changes in terms of the next 6 to 15, 18 months. That basically the robotaxi gets really out there in high volume, and then significant numbers of bots in factories, the Tesla factories, and then AI possibly going next level. It's a question, we have to see it. It's kind of like we don't know for sure is going to happen. The scaling laws, the compute indicates that it should be something that should happen in a big way. And then also just the things are just getting better in terms of the AI, in terms of the agent coding and that kind of stuff,
Right.
that just getting that all working better is something that's I think going to be change the world level stuff.
Yeah, one of the things that I think that one of the things that I saw over the last 2 weeks that really got me thinking this way was, the deep ability to do the deep think or the ability to do the reasoning. That was really, really big, and I thought that was a big step. The memory thing, this is really making me think that we're very close to having something that's going to be extremely useful and easy for people to use because you don't have to keep putting the prompts back in. Now Grok knows me. And I put
Mhm.
something in, he goes, well, based on what you said yesterday, I guess what you're talking about is this. And I mean, it's so next level already, even before we get to 3.5. And
Mhm.
somebody today commented, was that you that commented on X? Somebody commented that 3.5 is going to be yeah, a significant breakthrough.
Yeah, and it's not just Tesla, it's the new Anthropic Claude 4 model that's next level on programming. It thinks more about what you're asking for. It queries you more before it goes and makes the program. And the fact that the programming just works, it's like if you said, okay, answer this hard math problem. Oh, it sometimes gets sometimes doesn't. Make the math problem answer using Python programming. Then it's like you're giving it a calculator and it's able to do it because all it has to do is be able to program as good as a human programmer, and then it can solve all the problems that we solve with software.
Yeah.
And the CEO of Microsoft said that all of the business logic was moving from application software to AI agents. So the guys who sell the most application software are saying the business logic is moving from here over to here. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like they're in both, they kind of know.
Yeah.
So, these big changes are happening.
Okay, so at the core of all of it, and the point that I made throughout this four-part series is that one of the conversations that has just been repeated and repeated and repeated over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and you really didn't hear it talked about a year ago. Energy equals wealth. And this is now a new meme, if you will, a new piece of the zeitgeist that everybody's talking about. Almost every show, it's just repeated and repeated and repeated. And Elon saying we'll run out of energy by next summer. And we've got multiple everybody now agreeing with Elon that we're going to run out of energy by next summer. You and I have talked about all kinds of things like putting the data centers right in the gas field so that they're right by the pipe, if you will, out of the earth. They're ready. They don't have to pipe it anywhere. It's right there. We've talked about all kinds of possibilities. But then Elon says, I want my own terawatt. I don't want to have to rely on anybody else. I don't want to have to worry about whether the US government is going to do this or this energy company is going to do that. I want to produce. I don't think he's saying he wants to have a 1 terawatt of battery storage because he already wanted that. He already said he was going to do that. He's at least going to produce that for others to use. But now he's talking about, I believe, producing a terawatt for his companies and or to sell. I don't know. He might be including to sell to others. I'm with my limited knowledge, which I've gained 100% from you.
Mhm.
Okay, not 100%, but largely from you. I could only think of two ways to get there realistically, and that would be using the solar knowledge that Tesla has. They would either do ground-based and or space-based solar. I got a lot of clap back from people saying that Elon has said in the past that space-based solar is not as efficient as ground-based solar, and I wanted to really have you talk to that. And then number two is to buy a nuke company, maybe to buy Oklo or one of these companies that's up and coming that's ready to go, and or invest heavily in one or make a partnership with one or something like that. Those seem to be, and maybe it's both. I mean, it doesn't have to be either or. Anyway, what do you think is the most likely way that Elon Musk, given what you know about the energy possibilities and also the knowledge base, that we're dealing with, what would you think would be the smartest way to go?
Um, I could see Elon making his own nuclear company.
Okay.
He wouldn't have to buy one because his history has kind of been that he rarely buys a company that has something and then, because he would say that he would want it to, do it his way, that he would think, okay, yes, I like some of these ideas, but then uh, none of the nuclear companies is looking to make a terawatt of power. So he would have to probably come up with something different. So I would expect him to come with his own idea around that. Taking the things that are already available, then he has done solar on rooftops. He has taken the solar cells from China and other places and then made them into power generation at probably even gigawatts of levels.
Mhm.
Um, and then backing that up with batteries, but that would only be firm power. And in order to do a terawatt, um, so a terawatt of solar is not the same as a terawatt of nuclear
Right.
because solar only produces power, like 15, 20% of the time. And then, not efficiently and all that kind of stuff. So there is already a terawatt of solar power in the world right now,
In the
generating
world.
about,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. So it's just over thousands of square miles,
Yeah.
most half of it in China, half in other places and stuff like that. So it takes up a lot of area. And so that would mean a lot of land. We're talking like thousands of square miles of land. It would be, 1 million acres or something like that. It'd be a lot of
Right.
land to do that. And then to get the terawatt would be a lot.
But
Um,
I've driven through West Texas
yeah. Okay.
where he suggested that he could do
Yeah.
100 by 100 miles. And there's nothing there. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but it's just to buy the land, which owning millions of acres, I think Bill Gates already does that. So
Yeah.
it's not inconceivable that a billionaire could do it. Um, but it's a lot of land, and then it's also the grid and a bunch of other stuff. So ground-based solar plays to what he's already been doing. He may have said he doesn't believe in space-based solar, but technically it would work, and he has the most space solar power in the world right now because each of the 7,000, 8,000 Starlink satellites have about 7 kilowatts of power. So 7 kilowatts times 7,000, you're looking at 50 megawatts of power up there, which is more than the space station. It's just not beaming it anywhere. He's just using it in space.
Right.
So he has deployed a lot of solar. So he's very experienced doing that. And then when you get the 5 times larger version 3 satellites, they could have, 50 kilowatts per satellite. So you're mass producing them, you could get, very rapidly gigawatts of power up there. If I put 100,000 satellites, each with 40 gigawatts, sorry, 50 kilowatts, something like that. Um, it will get to a lot of power. So he has some options that way. What he actually ended up picking, um, I think it would be probably a mix. I don't know which one.
So
Yeah.
on the satellites that he's putting up already that have some solar capability, would it be an idea to just add to the amount of solar capability? In other words, over equip those satellites with solar for much more than they need in order to do what they do. Maybe substantially over equip them, or would it be smarter to put up satellites that are specifically for solar?
Um, Sorry, could you repeat the question?
So would you, so would it be, you're already putting up satellites,
Yeah.
and to your point, they already have some solar capability.
Mhm.
You could double, triple, quadruple, couldn't you just add to those satellites, make them so that the solar array that they have is way more than is required for the job that they're doing, and then use
Mhm.
the excess to go to be you know, laser collected or however that would work.
Yeah, yeah. So I've talked to space-based solar companies, and the best way to bring the power down would be to use microwave transmission, similar to what you use to communicate down to cell phones and that kind of stuff.
Right.
The uh, the transmission, the power, because of it, you're sending it down, several hundred miles,
Uh-huh.
right? The beam spreads out,
Oh,
right? So then you need a different kind of antenna, a rectenna, to take and convert the power. So transmitting it down and not having it harm stuff, we're doing that already with cell phone type stuff. So sending it down that way, you just need a large area to collect it.
okay.
Because if you're dealing with a lot of power, like power plant relative power,
Uh-huh.
relevant power,
Uh-huh.
gigawatts of power, you want to have this 5 square mile, 10 square mile target where
Wow.
I'm transmitting the power down. So it would end up looking like a more dense version of a solar field, but it
Hmm.
would be different wavelength in order to go through the atmosphere better. Yeah, so there's some options. It is something that many companies are working towards,
Oh,
um, but they're all relatively early stage. Um, so hopefully within a few years, we'll have beamed a first kilowatt of power over. That's kind of the target for one of the companies that's being the most aggressive on that. So putting a lot of power up in space, easy. We're doing it, putting a lot of power and beaming it down. We haven't really done that yet. We lit up a small light bulb, so it's very difficult to do. It's just proof of concept. We've done it. So there's technical hurdles there. Um, but I expect that to be solved. And if it doesn't get solved, the fact that you could have a lot of cheap space transport is something that Elon could change his mind about and pivot over to once he sees it happening by other people.
so some people have suggested that the interstate highway system would be the most obvious way to put up a lot of solar.
Give me
Uh,
one more second.
Absolutely.
One of the easiest ways for Elon to do a lot of space-based solar will be to stick it on Mars, because
Okay.
then it's it's further away, less whatever, but no atmosphere or a
Right.
lot far less atmosphere.
Right.
And then two, he could put all of his AI data center in one spot. I've said this before, on Mars.
Right.
So solar data center on Mars,
Yes.
power his
Yeah.
data centers, and have his terawatt there. So that would be his easiest because he wouldn't have to beam it. You'd just be
Right.
like using it
Right.
right where he's using it. Yeah.
Okay. So then with regard to solar, there's plenty of ideas in terms of putting them on top of parking lots, putting them on tops of buildings, putting on tops of houses, et cetera. And I saw a study the other day that said that if they did this for every surface, no, reasonably easily accessible surface in New York City, it would way more than power New York City,
Mhm.
for instance. So I guess that would be true probably for every city that you could just go over the parking lots, go over the buildings, et cetera. But that requires a tremendous amount of work to do that. On a much easier scale, people have talked about why can't you just line the interstate highway system with solar? You've already got the right of way. You've already got nobody has to, nobody, you don't have to do something new there. Now there's sometimes there's walls and other things.
So I would disagree with that approach
Okay.
because the highway and the roads are so over budget, overpriced for everything that you're doing with them. Making things more complicated, I think we just make things more expensive. Because, like adding a mile of highway, I think it's like 10 million, 100 million bucks. It's just like insanely more expensive than it should be. So by adding even more stuff, and by the way, while we're doing this thing, which we're blocking off this road to do or doing whatever, and our costs are already over budget, now we're going to toss this other extra construction on top beside it. It's like it's already too expensive and screwed up. If you were to totally reinvent it and say, okay, I'm rolling and deploying, and I got some super machine just making the road and making all the solar. Okay, fine. You know, but I have to see that first because my belief is everything related to your roads are overexpensive. You know, that infrastructure is just 10 times more expensive than it should be.
I was thinking more a case of where the federal system is controlled by the federal government. So Elon could go to POTUS and he say, Mr. Trump, I would like to use all of the sides of the existing freeways and highways across the United States that belong to the federal government, and I would just like to add solar, in that same right of way. And I'll just rent it from you. I'll put money into the new sovereign wealth fund, for renting that space. And I think there would be a lot of miles there, a lot of square miles of solar if you could do that.
Yeah, the areas there, I'm convinced about the cost.
Oh, I just think if Elon did it, not the government.
Elon did it. Okay, yeah,
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 yeah, if Elon did it, not the government. No, no, no,
yeah,
no.
yeah.
All right. Okay. So, and then of course the other big one that people talk about all the time, and they're doing right down the street from my home in Riverside, is the
Co-location.
use, yeah, co-location with agriculture. It seems like that's another one that it's been proven out. It works. They can do it. So that it would seem like that would be faster maybe to actually execute on than some of the other ideas.
Yeah, yeah. I think they have solar that they work with the farmers, and that you can set things up where it doesn't interfere with growing the plants. Yeah.
And you had told me years ago, okay, it wasn't years ago, it seems like it sometimes, but maybe a year ago when we did one of these shows, you had talked about how quickly solar could be ramped, that already China does massive amounts of solar. And of course, depending on how these tariffs and everything work out, that could still be a main source, but that ramping up solar production in the United States or Mexico, whatever, if we chose to do some additional besides China, would not be a very big deal. And I couldn't remember the other day whether it was you or Brian White or who it was that said, why couldn't Tesla um, create what's my word for it, a a system like he's been doing with the energy pumps, where they're
Mhm.
in a set. You have a set of solar
Prefabricated and have a much.
prefabricated, right?
Yeah.
Put it on the back of a semi and just drop those babies off really fast. You wouldn't have all the labor at the point of installation.
Yeah, I think having things that are pre-built in the factory with ideally bots, reduce the labor, get them out faster, have them be light and deployable, that, but still strong enough to withstand the wind here on Earth. That would be something that could be some ultimate solution that Elon thinking about how to revamp the construction, the cost, and how fast you do it, um, and having it deployed with semi trucks and that kind of thing. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that they would be able to do that, and they have, like I said, experience doing that with the Starlink solar.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, Elon. You've been watching him for a long, long time. I know Elon. I've been watching him for a long, long time. So when he says he wants a terawatt, do you just assume he's going to execute on this, or at least attempt? I mean, he rarely he rarely doesn't do what he says he's going to do. It might take him longer than anyone expects, but do you just assume right now that that's a major piece of his plan for the next decade?
Yeah, I'm not sure what decade, because he says he
Oh,
wants it as fast as possible. Because even for Elon, it'd be difficult to do, because the whole world is, if you talk about like converting it to high capacity, which is like nuclear power, right? Because if nuclear power is like 6 times more uh, power for the same gigawatt as solar is, 3 times, 2, 3 times more than wind, because of intermittency, all that other problem, right? So we've added about 150 gigawatt equivalent of nuclear, or uh, it's a total of like I think it's 1,200 terawatt hours of power, the world
mhm,
last year,
mhm. Okay.
right? So if you were to, the world is adding that terawatt over the next 7, 8 years,
Okay.
right? So the world is doing it. So basically, he's saying he's going to duplicate that all by
So,
himself,
yes.
right? Oh, but doing it in that shorter period of time is difficult even for him, because you're pushing everything else. They have to make the factory to make the whatever, right? So it's I would think 20 years, and if 20 years, then I think again you're bringing Mars into the
Okay.
question, because he'll be able to put it there, and then no one will be able to say, hey, you have to buy that land, and he can say, I'm just gonna put it there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, here's my other thought. Every time that Elon says there's a shortage, all of a sudden the shortage goes away. And he's even said that that's the nature of the human species, is that when
Mm.
there's a shortage, everybody's they glom over there and they start overproducing.
Yeah.
So I said the other day on my show that I believe that the shortage, and it may be a shortage next summer. He may be right a year from summer. It may be a shortage by next summer, but maybe by the summer after that, we've got oversupply. What do you think?
Of transformers, of
Of
chips,
energy, of energy, of energy
energy.
in general. Yeah.
Um, I actually think it's a tougher problem. You may um, be able to prevent severe shortages, but it's the kind of thing where it's like Tesla saying they have enough batteries. Enough batteries if you're not really growing that much on your car side, but not enough. So we're going to be adding so much power for AI data centers, so much more electricity in order to convert 20%, 30% of our fuel for cars and for trucks over to electricity that our fast growth demand for electricity is going to continue for centuries. So we'll be temporarily ahead of the problem.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, do you have any other thoughts for me with regard to this energy issue that I might have not thought through carefully enough?
It's rapidly changing. We're going to need to, I think, double global energy by 2040-ish, 2050 at the latest. And so it's a lot of power that we're adding, for this AI stuff. And you know, we could go to billion the bots, and billion the bots would need, say, each one need 5% of the power of a car, electric car. So it's a lot of power they're going to need to power many, many things. AI data centers, bots, cars, trucks. It's a lot of stuff we need to power. And going to your point at the beginning, all this power, all this te power technology is wealth. And so that's where it's all going to come together. And hopefully we'll get a big 10x out of it, going from, 100, $80,000, $100,000 per American, $2 million per year. Things can go really, really good for us.
All right. Well, Brian, as always, that's exactly what I wanted to hear from you. I'm glad that you provide us with that resource on this channel. Uh, Nobody else. I mean, sure, Brian hangs out at some of the other channels from time to
Yeah.
time, but when he's on this channel, it's always usually far deeper and more
Mhm.
useful. Anyway, thanks
And I
again.
also haven't posted on my channel as well too. So
Oh,
coming
yeah.
over and check us both
Don't
out. Yeah.
forget, don't forget to visit his channel. Absolutely
Yeah.
right. All right,
Okay.
Brian. Thanks so much. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.